Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Bandolph. This broadcast is presented by Senior Medical Associates, and glad to be joined by Gary Kornbluh. Good evening, Mr. Kornbluh.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, Scott. Let me just say, I'm so thrilled to promote Senior Medical Associates. So that's the first thing I'll do. Senior Medical, you'll see you'll recognize their logo. It's an apple with the white star in the middle, the white cross, I should say. These folks truly are the leaders in senior care. So just keep that in mind. If you have seniors that are 60, no seniors that are 65 and older, mom and dad, aunt and uncle, send them to Senior Medical Associates. My parents use Senior Medical, and I just love these guys. You can reach them at 954-659-9690, seniormedicalassociates.net, and they truly are the leaders in senior care. So they're sponsoring the podcast here. So once again, thank you very much, particularly to Mohammed and Senior Medical Associates. Okay, with that, Scott, go ahead and roll them.
All right, folks, my advice when you listen to these broadcasts, get your pad and paper ready. We always like to make sure that it's very educational, so don't be afraid to take a fluent notes. With that said, okay, Gary, what is short-term medical?
Short-term medical. Okay, short-term medical can actually be an excellent solution for someone's medical insurance, whether it's an individual, a husband and wife, a couple, a family with children. My clients that fit the short-term medical are folks that don't qualify for tax credits through the marketplace because their income is too high, and they're healthy enough to qualify. Because short-term medical, although it's designed to fill short-term gaps in insurance, particularly that 90-day probationary period when you first get a new job, you can also use it as your long-term coverage too, because you can get a policy as much as 360 days. So it's just 5 days shy of a full year of coverage. Now, just keep in mind that they are not ACA compliant, which means they're not guaranteed issue plans. There is medical underwriting. There's no paramedical exam required. They don't come to your home and check your height and weight and take your blood, but they do check the various medical information bureau databases, pharmacy databases, and so forth. So you do have to qualify. So as long as you're healthy, you qualify. The benefit is that you can get coverage at a drastically reduced cost, maybe somewhere around 30 to 40%.
So Gary, is it an HMO or a PPO?
It is actually a PPO. And not only is it a PPO, but I'm glad you asked me that question because it's actually one of the largest national PPOs in the country. It's actually, let me just give you an example. Let's say, God forbid you lived in Florida and you were traveling in California and you became ill. You could actually see any one of the doctors, specialists, or hospitals in that network. So a PPO actually gives you access to that national network. So it is a PPO, and quite a large one. I rarely ever find a doctor or a hospital that's actually not in this network.
So with that said, are all my pre-existing conditions covered?
Well, since it's not an ACA compliant plan, meaning that you have to provide evidence of insurability, you have to be medically insurable. There are medical questions, and if you do have answered yes to any of these questions and you do have pre-existing conditions, you won't qualify right off the bat. So you have to answer no to these series. It's like 5 or 6 questions, very basic questions, but they do address certain pre-existing conditions. Now, having said that, high blood pressure is actually not really one of those pre-existing conditions anymore. It seems that most people are dying with high blood pressure rather than from high blood pressure these days.
Well, you're not normal if you don't have high blood pressure. Pushing, after what the society that we live in with all the chaos, please name me a person that doesn't have high blood pressure.
That's so true.
Maybe the infants don't, but they have a lot of high blood pressure when they make their entrance in the world, but that'll be for another day. But
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they do. That's a stressful event for them for sure. Good thing that we're too young to remember that, right?
Isn't that the truth?
But I just want to say, yes, you must do, the point is you must qualify for these short-term medical plans. Unlike the marketplace where everybody gets a policy, they're what we call guaranteed issue.
Right.
But if you do qualify, yeah, you can save a lot of money on the by going the short-term medical route.
So folks, if you got high blood pressure, as they say in The Lion King, Hakuna Matata, no worries. Okay. So how do I know, or what do I need to do in order to qualify for a short-term medical policy?
Well, you would just have to, again, you would have to qualify medically, which means you would have to answer these questions satisfactorily. And then once you do that, you would actually submit your payment information, and the company only charges you that premium upon approval. So if you don't get approved, of course, they don't charge you. Now, there's actually, in many of these carriers offer two payment modes: a monthly payment mode if you want to just pay monthly, or you can save even more money, at about 22 to 24%, by doing what we call a single pay option. So not only is the pricing already lower than the marketplace, but with the single pay option, you can bring your costs down even further.
Okay, so Gary, am I covered for doctor visits and specialist visits?
The way a short-term medical policy works, Scott, it's like those old-fashioned indemnity plans that we grew up with. Let's say you had a deductible to meet, and then you're covered at 80%, the old 80-20 rule. Well, the ones that I offer to my clients are, you have your choice of 4 different deductibles. You could have a deductible as low as $2,500, but it's $2,500, $5,000, $10,000, and I think in $15,000. So basically what you're doing with the higher deductible plans is you're basically purchasing a catastrophic plan. You're basically saying, you're self-insuring for all of those doctor visits, specialist visits, medications. You're essentially self-insuring for everything right up to that deductible. You can, but it's your choice what deductible to choose. Naturally, if you choose a $2,500 deductible, then you've got 100% coverage pretty quickly, because it's easy to rack up $2,500 in the hospital, God forbid. And then, but once you do meet that deductible, there's zero coinsurance, which means you're covered at 100%, right up to typically $2 million per policy period.
Well, I know our audience will definitely want to know a lot about this. So how about my prescription medications? I mean, name a person nowadays isn't on one of these.
Right. So, and then I'm sorry, and I'll go back and I'll say that you are covered for doctor visits, for specialist visits, for medications, I believe usually up to $3,000 per year, for inpatient hospitalization, for outpatient. Just remember, you have to meet your deductible first, right? Just like your auto insurance policy. You have $1,000 collision deductible that you have to pay that first $1,000 before your policy pays. It's the same thing with this plan. You would have to pay out of pocket up to that deductible. Once you've hit that deductible, then the policy picks up 100% until the end of the policy period, up to a maximum of $2 million. But to answer your question, all of that is covered, okay, once you've met your deductible. Okay. Now, let me just say one other thing. A lot of these plans, one that I deal with in particular, and anyone can feel free to call me and I'll be more than happy to explain and tell you which carrier that is, because there are several in this short-term medical space, but there are some companies that even offer an urgent care benefit. So even if you never met your deductible, you could pay, I think it's either $50 or $75, and you get unlimited urgent care visits. So even if you never even touched your deductible, and let's say you were ill or sick or injured, had like a minor injury, you could visit any one of these participating urgent care centers, pay your copayment, and that's all you have to pay, regardless of what they do, whether they do blood work, x-rays, ultrasounds, it doesn't matter. You're just responsible for the copayment. So it's kind of a nice benefit.
So summarize to our people again about the medications.
So the medications are covered, again, up to that deductible amount and up to a maximum. Typically, it's about $3,000 of medication per year.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I'll tell you the
Thanks,
reason why I asked you that question twice. It's for those individuals that are taking notes or listening to this. Want to make sure that of all things, we really do like to emphasize on certain points throughout the course of a broadcast. Medications, folks, is something that a lot of us have to take, and it's very, very important that we address this particular thing in the manner and the detail for which it's intended. With that said, is this plan similar to a marketplace plan where I get my free annual exam?
It's again, it's different from from a marketplace plan in that it is non-ACA compliant, which means that you're subject to medical underwriting, and because again, the plans are not guaranteed issue. You have to qualify medically. So it's different than a marketplace plan in that respect. It's also different, and this is huge. It's different because you don't qualify for a subsidy if you have a short-term medical plan. The subsidy, those Obamacare subsidies, are only available to marketplace plans. So, but again, the reason for why this policy works for certain individuals is because some individuals their income is too high, so they don't qualify for tax credits. So that's why short-term medical is a great option for them, can be a great option for them. And I'll tell you, most of my very wealthy, very business savvy clients, they take the highest deductibles. They take the 10 and the 15,000 deductibles because they're just looking for catastrophic coverage. They have no problem coming out of pocket 10 or 15,000. They just don't want to pay this huge monthly premium. And most of them make the single payment and save that additional 23-24%. So
okay,
it can be a great fit for certain people. It's not for everyone, but for certain clients, it's a great fit.
So Gary, are these policies one-year policies like the marketplace plans?
That's actually a good question, because short-term medical can be as little as can give you as little as 1 month or 30 days of coverage. Because again, think of the term short-term medical. So the definition of short-term medical changed, I think, a few years ago. It used to be that short-term medical policies were a maximum of 6 months in duration, but the government changed that and gave us the opportunity to cover someone on a short-term medical plan up to a maximum of 360 days, which is really only 5 days short of a full year. So you can go as little as 1 month, Scott, or as much as almost a full year of coverage, and anything in between. So what it's popular for too is for just to cover the gap for those people that have gotten a new job, they're on a probationary period where their health insurance may not kick in for 90 days. Perfect solution for that. Fills that gap until they get covered under their new group plan.
All right, so can I cancel at any time if I no longer need the short-term medical plan?
You can. So let's say that you did land a job, and a full-time job with full benefits, including medical benefits. And let's even say that you paid the short-term premium policy in full. You would actually get let's say you paid in 6 months, you paid for a full year, or let's say 360 days. And then 6 months from that date, you get a full-time job with full benefits and you wanted to cancel. So in 6 months, you could actually, and you pay the full premium. You could cancel in 6 months and get a full prorated premium refunded back to you. So you would get every dollar of unused premium would come back, would be refunded back to you in the event that you had to cancel. So it's kind of nice in that respect. You're not really locked in if you do happen to get onto a good group plan.
Very good. So how do I know if my doctor is in the network?
Well, you would, what you could ask your doctor. Yeah, do you guys take, United Healthcare Choice PPO? Are you in the are you in the United Healthcare Choice PPO network? So that's one way. Ask the doctor or the specialist. But it's even easier than that. You could just go on to, there's a link that you can go on to search for providers. And chances are, no matter what state you look in, no matter what state you do a search in, chances are you're going to find that doctor, because this is actually a very large network.
Okay. All right. So what discounts are available?
I'm sorry?
What discounts are available?
Oh, what discounts are, okay. So I touched on that, but let me just go a little further. So really most of these carriers offer 2 payment methods. Some people just prefer to pay things monthly because their budget is monthly, and that's fine. But if you do the math, the discount comes in when you pay the full premium, whether it's where you only need 3 months of coverage or 6 months of coverage, or let's say you need a full 360 days, almost a full year of coverage. The discount comes in if you pay that single premium versus the monthly. The other discount would be if you're a non-smoker. You would get the non-smoker discount, and then there is a table. There's a height and weight table, but it's pretty lenient. But if you happen to be happen to be high on the chart, it could bump you into the next tiering, and you could see a little bit of an increase in premium that way. But talk about discounts, it would be the single payment method would be your absolute best discount.
Okay. So Gary, how do I sign up?
Well, you call me. You give me a call. My name is Gary. My website is www.medigapx.com. That's MEDIGAPX. You can call me on my cell phone. It's always on 24/7, 561-305-5949. You can call my office at 954-532-2060. You can email me at gary.kornbluh, KORNBLUH, at medigapx.com. There are many ways to reach me. The best way to reach me is really my cell phone. It's on 24/7, and I'd be happy to do a quote for you. I could email that quote to you for your review. You'll have a link to do a search in the network, so you can search doctors. You'll have a brochure to review. I'm happy to do that.
Well, so for a lot of you folks who realize that Gary Kornbluh does write a column for the South Florida Tribune, and that's tell you one thing, very, very informative. You really get a lot of hits off of your material, and it's really, really important that people understand that at some point or another, whether it's straight medical insurance, which we do talk about every once in a while, or regular Medicare, it doesn't matter. To me, it all is interrelated is really what it is. And I think that we either need one or the other. And to me, that's the nicest part about you being able to not only be a broadcaster, Gary, but a columnist as well. So I think that people should realize that you wear not one, but 2 hats. The South Florida Tribune podcast is presented by Senior Medical Associates. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Glad to be joined by Gary Kornbluh on the show tonight. If you want to go ahead and listen to these broadcasts in your automobile, then by all means, go ahead and subscribe to iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcast, and then you'll be able to go ahead and listen to it, whether you're on your drive and so forth. So, Gary, why don't you give our followers the opportunity to let you know what you're planning to talk about down the line.
Well, I mean, we touched on prescription medications, so that could be that could take up an entire podcast. So going forward, we'll do one on prescription meds and the donut hole. My next one will probably be on Medicare Advantage because the annual election period, that AEP annual election period, is coming up. It's right around the corner. It starts on October 15th, ends on December 7th. So that's the next podcast that you'll hear is on particularly on Medicare Advantage. There's a lot to talk about there.
So folks, what I should emphasize here is our broadcast can be found on our website where there's a lot of content. If you haven't gotten it, I'll go over it again, www.southfloridatribune.com. You look under the drop-down section and you see broadcasts there. Have a lot of great material as well from all of our columnists, Gary being one of those columnists, and we have some great media distribution partners as well. So feel free to check those out. And if you want to email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Twitter as well at Tribune South. And more importantly, when you look, you can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. So there are numerous different ways that you can contact with us. If you're on LinkedIn, look me up, Scott Morganroth, and then you can connect with me there. Gary, you have an active LinkedIn account as well. So you can reach us a lot of different ways. So when you talk about repetition, about where the health insurance industry goes, whether short-term medical, Obamacare, Medicare, as I mentioned to you before, folks, it's very interrelated. There isn't a person that won't benefit, whether you need medical insurance right away, long-term medical care for yourself, your loved ones, and of course, not only that, Medicare season will be coming up pretty soon. So we will keep you very, very equipped about the type of material. We encourage you to share these broadcasts with your friends, family, co-workers, because I know one thing, you will always have the ability to benefit as much as possible by the information that we have. So we are proud to have senior medical associates and their crew behind this broadcast. We look forward to doing some remote broadcasts on site in the very not so distant future. So look for all the updates as well. So Gary, we've covered everything we need to cover. Is there another thing or two that you want to mention before we get everybody an opportunity to look forward to the next one?
No, Scott, I mean, I think that's it. I mean, short-term medical is, I think is one of those products that people kind of get. It's, again, just in a nutshell, it can cover short-term gaps in your coverage. You can actually use it as a long-term solution as well. So, but again, just the comparison really needs to be made between the marketplace and short-term medical. So in some circumstances, the marketplace could be a better option for a potential customer, and conversely, short-term medical could be a better option. So everybody has unique, everybody's so similar really, but again, I look at everybody as a unique individual with individual needs. So it's not a one size fits all world, different people have different needs, different budgets, and we try to accommodate all of that.
So folks, get your pen and paper out there. There's a lot of great information on this show, and we bring it to you. I'm going to go over the contact information again. Follow us, go to our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You can email us at southfloridatribune@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. And these broadcasts can be found the visual version by subscribing to the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel. And if you're in your vehicle and you want to listen to not only the South Florida Tribune podcast, but as well as the Sports Exchange and some of the other shows, feel free to do so. But for the South Florida Tribune podcast, you can subscribe through iHeartRadio. You can subscribe to Spreaker. I didn't mention them, but I will mention them now. You also have Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, as well as Spotify. So Meanwhile, Gary, a great broadcast tonight. I know I learned a lot every time I go ahead and bring you on the broadcast, and we'll make sure we share it out to our listeners and hope that you get as much out of this information as we do presenting it to you. So on behalf of Gary Kornbluh, my name is Scott Morgan, Route the Motor City Madmouth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of South Florida Tribune podcast presented by Senior Medical Associates. So until the next time, everybody, be safe out there. And you know what? I'm going to say this again. Okay. Don't take COVID-19 for granted. I know there's been a recent spike in cases. Don't do it. But once again, on point, this is Scott, along with Gary, saying thank you for joining us on this edition of the South Florida Tribune podcast. Good night, everybody, and look forward to catching you the next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.